Hi guys, welcome back to a page in the chapter, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Paige and today we are discussing hyped books that are actually really good and deserve the hype that they get. A lot of these books that I have picked and will be reviewing today are actually some pretty good spring reads. A couple of them not so much, but actually a lot of them I think are very fitting for spring. I didn't intend on it being that way, but it's just a happy coincidence. So these are books that are very hyped and talked about a lot, both in the BookTube and Book Twitter community, but also a hell of a lot on BookTok. And I do tend to stay away from particularly hyped books a lot of the time, but sometimes you just have to pick them up. Sometimes you're just really in the mood for them, and so these are the ones that I actually think are worth you picking up. There are definitely some others that have given me plenty of video ideas in my research of hyped books for this video, but that's for another day. You guys like the sound of this video and you want to see more, then I do have a whole playlist of reading recommendations and these types of BookTube classic videos, all aptly entitled Reading Recommendations and BookTube Classics. So you are welcome to go and watch some of those videos if you would like to just see more of this space and how I talk about books. Or if you've decided that you like what you've seen so far, then do feel free to hit that big red subscribe button down below to stay tuned for future content. I upload twice a week on a Wednesday and a Friday, so there is no shortage of bookish content here for you to enjoy. You can also check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Page in Chapter, so you can see what I'm reading and how I'm reviewing it in real time. You might get some more recommendations faster that way. It's entirely up to you. And so without further ado, here are the 8 hyped books that I love and think are worth the hype. So the very first book that I would like to share with you is one that I saw mostly on BookTube and Book Twitter, but I'm sure that it has had its time and place on BookTok too, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by VE Schwab. VE Schwab is a very popular author. This book came out in 2020, I believe, potentially 2019, but I think it was 2020. It just kind of took the internet by storm. Everybody seemed to love it, and yeah, this book was purchased for me, so I don't know if I would have ever picked it up if someone didn't buy it for me, but someone did, and then I read it and I'm so happy that I did, because this then ended up being my favourite book of the year. I have since reread it 2 or 3 times. It's one of my biggest comfort books in the entire world, and so I highly recommend this one. I do think that it is entirely worthy of the hype that it gets. So this follows our main character Addie LaRue, and she is growing up in 18th century France, where her life as a woman is very much just be a daughter and then be a wife. But Addie doesn't want this. She wants to be free of men, she wants to be free of her small town life, she wants to travel, she just wants to be more. This wish of hers leads to her accidentally making a deal with the devil, and this deal does grant her her freedom, but it means that anytime she leaves a room, the people in that room will completely forget about her. She can't leave her mark on the world, she can't leave a memory, she can't leave her name, she can't exist basically. She just kind of lives this nomadic experience as the invisible Addie LaRue. And so then some 300 years later in New York City, she walks into a bookstore and the man who works in the bookstore, Henry, remembers who she is. Addie is absolutely flabbergasted, and she then cannot leave Henry alone because he's the first person in 300 years to remember her and be able to get to know her. It's just a beautiful love story, but not just a love story. It very much chronicles Addie's life in those 300 years where she was completely forgotten about, and very much goes into detail of the situations and the problems her being forgotten every time she leaves a room would entail, and how much of a curse it really is. It is a very Eurocentric book. Addie doesn't travel anywhere outside of Europe and America, but if you can get past that, which I can, then this is a very heartwarming story. It is very slow paced, but that is to represent the slow passage of time for Addie, who is immortal. and who can't leave any mark on the world. And through it being this like slow passage of time, it just makes the ending that much more cozy and worth it. And it is just the coziest, most wonderful book in the entire world. But it is also kind of like spring vibes. You've got the forget-me-nots on the cover. It's all about these new beginnings for Addie, and I really recommend this book. The next book that is 110% worth the hype is another insta-buy author for me that I have spoken about a lot. It was very difficult for me to pick which one of her books I was going to talk about, but I then just kind of had to go for the most obvious one, and so that book is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You see what I mean now. Any of her books could really be on this list. I love them all. They are all massively hyped up, and this is just her most famous one, I feel like. So The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo follows the story of, you guessed it, Evelyn Hugo, and she has requested that Monique write her biography, her memoirs, like whatever they're called. Monique is just a random journalist at this very random newspaper, and Evelyn Hugo has said that it has to be Monique who writes her memoirs. She will not interview with anyone else. It has to be Monique. And so we kind of are sat in Monique's perspective as Evelyn discusses her life with us. And Evelyn Hugo is this 1950s, 1960s like mega starlet, and all she's really remembered for is the fact that she was married 7 times, and we go through Evelyn's life, what each of her marriages were like, why she felt like she needed these marriages, and what an interesting character she really is. It's very The Lucky One / The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift. If you like the vibes of those songs, those like old Hollywood atmospheric storytelling, then this book is very much for you. I will be doing a Taylor Jenkins Reid, like full reread this summer of all of her books, the ones that I have read and the ones that I have not yet. I'm absolutely obsessed with her writing. I haven't read this book since 2020. This was the first book that I read like when the sun was like beaming down on us in March 2020. This was like my first lockdown book, and I'm so happy that I read it. I adore it so much, and this is 100% worth the hype. Like, I dare you to find someone who does not like this book. Then we have The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is an older hyped BookTube book. This is like from when I was a young teenager watching BookTube type of hyped book. I don't see this one getting as much love these days, but it was big on BookTube back in the day, so I thought I'd throw it back and include it in this video. So this, you guessed it, follows a night circus. It's a circus that only opens at nighttime. It's this super magical, atmospheric circus that just pops up in these towns. No one sees it roll in, no one sees it leave. It just turns up in these towns. We have multi-perspectives in this book. We have someone who is visiting the circus and is obsessed with the circus, and we see it as an outsider point of view. And then we have perspectives of the people inside the circus. And then we have my favourite subplot of this book, which is these 2 magicians in the circus are competing with each other. So they pick champions, and these champions have to be trained by the magicians and then battle to the death, and then whoever has the winning champion is deemed to be like the better magician. Except in this point in time, our 2 champions fall in love. That was kind of the hook for me in terms of buying this book, and it's what kept me reading this book, and it just meant that I loved every aspect of it. Like, I just loved the atmosphere that Erin Morgenstern was able to create in this book. I would honestly say it's one of my favourite books of all time. Again, I'm probably very due for a reread of this, but I just had the most fantastic time with it. The storyline has stuck in my head for years and years and years and years. I just love it. I do think that it deserves the hype that it gets. I will say, like all of Erin Morgenstern's books, this one seems to have a bit of a either you love it or you hate it narrative surrounding it. It's the same as The Starless Sea. If it helps in any way, I hated The Starless Sea, but I adored this book. I don't know if this is if you like one, you hate the other type of situation. I don't know, but just for reference, this one feels a lot clearer in terms of plotline and narrative than the Starless Sea did, and this one has all of these different elements but is actually able to weave them all together and create a clear narrative, whereas I feel like the Starless Sea was just a little bit all over the place and didn't really know what it wanted to be. This one is much clearer, and I really think that you should give it a go because there's nothing else really like this on the market. I'd say closest would be Caraval, and I really liked Caraval, but I think that this is better. This is a lot more magical and atmospheric than Caraval is. But I imagine if you like Caraval, then you'll really like this because it's a very similar setting. And then we have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L Armentrout. This book is hiding at the top of my bookshelves, right at the back. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but not only are these shelves, you can see, triple stacked, I've put books along the top of the bookcase that are also double stacked, but also like stacked on top of each other, as well as being like double stacked. So the chances of me finding that book in the back of this bookcase is so slim, but I know that it's there. It's organised chaos in this bookshelf. I know where things are, but I also don't know where things are. That's why I don't have my physical copy of this book to show you today, but I love this book so much. I'm so far behind in this series, but it's in my series tracker. I am committed to like getting through it. They're just such big books and they take a long time to read, so that's why I'm being so slow with it, but I love it so much and I've seen so much about the latest book. So this is a little bit of a complicated story to explain to you. It follows our main character Poppy, and she has been branded as the Maiden by this kind of dystopian society, and that means that no one can look at her. She is kind of in a essentially just an embellished prison. She can't see anyone, she can't learn to fight, she has to stay a maiden. She's not entirely sure what her big duty as a maiden in the future will be. She just knows that she is preparing to be something for this dystopian society, but no one's really given her the details. And when the enemy of this society is believed to be hunting Poppy down, she is provided with a new kind of protector. When a romance starts to blossom, she is very, very conflicted about what she's supposed to do, because obviously she can't do anything with it. She's not even supposed to be having these feelings for him, and it just makes her feel even more trapped and confused about who she is. And then this leads her on a whole type of journey. I really don't want to spoil anything for you, so I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. But this is a high fantasy romance novel, and what I really like about this book is that the romance is so prominent in the book. Like, to me, Jennifer L Armentrout is a romance author. I know she writes in a lot of fantasy settings, but I feel like the core plot lines of her books are romance. I feel like in the first book the blend of fantasy and romance is perfect. Poppy and Hunt have such a fun banter. I actually remember that I first read this book on stream with Rachel, and I was just grinning from ear to ear, like giggling. The interactions between our characters, like I had so much fun with them. I really recommend this book. I do think it deserves the hype. Any Jennifer L Armentrout book has been really fun for me. I just really like the fact that she writes romances in fantasy settings. I feel like it's so difficult to actually find that. A lot of people do fantasies that have romance subplots, a lot of people do romances, but finding a book that has such a big fantasy element and such a big romance element can be a little difficult, and I just love that she's done it, and she's done it really well too. So if you're hesitant to pick this up, I really recommend it. Not only is it well written and well thought out and well plotted, it's also very spicy and good fun. Then we have a big shift in tone, and we have The Poppy War by Rf Quang. This is another massive booktube and book Twitter hyped book. This is a historical fantasy following our main character Rin, and she gets accepted into this very prestigious military school, and where she is very much learning how to be a warrior, how to defend a country that has always looked down on her people down in the south. Rin is a dark-skinned peasant girl that comes with its own difficulties in this world, and then when they are all thrust into war, it's just a very difficult situation. I don't really want to discuss this book too much because I really think that it should just stand for itself, but this is a military/war fantasy that is based around the Opium Wars in China. It is very, very much a political fantasy. Everything is strategized, everything, like the book is like 2 steps ahead at all moments. I must insist that you check the trigger warnings for this book because there are a hell of a lot of them for this whole series, but if you feel like you can go into it, then it is very, very much worth the hype. I don't like dark books, I don't typically like military fantasies. I went into this one because of the hype and also because I didn't realise it was a military fantasy, and I still found it to be an absolutely fantastic book. Like, it is absolutely incredibly written and it does deserve the hype that it gets. It's just about whether the type of content in it is really like for you, but as I said, it's not really for me either, and I still had a really, really good time reading this book. You get completely lost in it. You kind of just forget that you're reading when you are reading it, and I cannot recommend it enough. And then we have the book that inspired this whole video, the book that started it all, and it kind of hurts me to say this a little because this is such a TikTok book that it hurts, but it's also such a good book, and that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I love this book. Like, as I have my bad things to say about this book, and I have given it full reviews both in my channel update and in my March wrap up, so I'm really not going to give you the bad points of this book for the purpose of this video, but it's very much worth the hype. I can see why it blew up, and please don't be put off from this book because it's a BookTok book, so it must be like really like young and immature and like seen as like bad literature. Honestly, it blew up on BookTok because it's good. It deserved to. Like, it's fantastic. Just ignore the TikTok sensation sticker and go into it because it's so fun. If you want a fun romance that is also really steamy and spicy and is set in an academic setting, then I don't really know why you're holding out. So this is a fake dating trope in an academic setting. It follows our main character Olive, and she is a PhD candidate in biology, and she needs to convince her best friend that she's moved on from her ex because her best friend is interested in Olive's ex. They weren't officially together, they went on a couple dates. But Olive's friend is refusing to date this guy even though she's clearly in love with him because of the girl code. So Olive needs to convince her that she's over him, and this leads her to accidentally kissing Adam, who's one of the most successful biologists in Olive's lab. And so then they start fake dating because, as I said, Olive needs to convince her best friend that she's moved on, and Adam needs to convince the university that he has no plans of leaving, and thus the fake dating situationship is born. The fake dating is so well written and the smut scenes are just incredible. I could not really recommend this book enough. I've had so much fun with it. I feel like I will be rereading it many a time in the future, and just get off your high horse if you're hesitating with this book just because of TikTok. Like, honestly, it's so good. And then the final book I would like to discuss with you is one that we have to talk about before the Netflix series drops, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I mean, how can we not talk about this book? It's very hyped. I imagine with the Netflix series coming out, it's going to be even more hyped. Can you imagine the Netflix covers and the stickers and the... oh my god, everyone's going to be so obsessed with the Heartstopper series. So I'm just going to put it out there now, read it before the ugly covers come out. So this is a YA graphic novel series that follows our main characters Nick and Charlie, and they are in high school together and they sit next to each other in homeroom, I believe, and it is about them navigating their feelings for each other in a high school setting that is a notoriously difficult setting to be yourself in. But Alice Oseman writes it in the most incredible way. They do get slightly darker as you move through the volumes, so maybe check any content warnings related to this series. This first one though I think is pretty okay. They're very light in the beginning and then start to deal with some heavier topics. But again, the heavier topics are still dealt with in a very, very understanding and light way. Like, Alice Oseman isn't making light of difficult situations, but she is making them very accessible to her audience, and it still fits with the overall atmosphere of these books. I hope that that is not something that is ruined in the TV adaptation, but honestly guys, get into these series. They're such quick reads and they're so fun. These were the first graphic novels I ever read, and it's just kind of a great entry point into the kind of graphic novel reading experience. I really recommend these. Again, they are big on the internet for a reason. The fact that you will struggle to find bad reviews of this book is because they're just incredible. So just go with it, go buy the books, go read them, go get on the hype train before the Netflix series comes out, because trust me, it is worth it. There we go, and so here we have the hyped books on the internet that are actually going to be worth your time, because I've been tricked by the internet many a time, but trust me, these are good. These are not going to be a waste of your time. These are just amazing. Particular ones I think you should check out would be The Love Hypothesis and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. If you're going to take any books from this video, it would be those two. Let me know down in the comment section if you have read any of these books, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Don't worry, we will still be friends if you disagree with me. Let me know if this video has led you to be more tempted to read one of them. I don't know, I really want to know about your reading. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope that you enjoyed. If you did enjoy it, then why not hit that big red subscribe button down below to stay tuned for future content, and also check out some of my other videos, like get to know me a bit more, get to find some other books that you might be interested in. I don't know, just stick around if you would like to. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week, you are enjoying everything that you are reading, and there are no reading slumps in your future, and I will see you for my next video. Bye guys.